What if I told you that one horse held the crown of greatness for nearly 4 decades? Before American Pharoah, before Justify, there was Affirmed, the warrior who slammed the door shut on an era. For 37 years, no one could follow where he led. One Belmont win changed the game forever. In 1978, Affirmed didn't just win the Triple Crown, he made it sacred. Others tried. They ran fast, they ran hard, but they fell short. Because Affirmed wasn't just a racehorse, he was a force of will, a symbol of fire, focus, and the fight to finish. Every Triple Crown dream after him was measured against his legacy. He wasn't just the last, he was the legend. From the moment he crossed the line at Belmont, a drought began. And with it, a myth. For 37 years, fans waited, prayed, and watched pretenders fall. But through it all, one name stood untouched. Affirmed, the gold standard of greatness. A champion so complete, time itself couldn't outshine him. And when the next hero came, they didn't break Affirmed's legend. They only proved how rare it truly was. In the sun-soaked paddocks of Florida, a chestnut colt named Affirmed was born. Bred not in the blue-blood stables of Kentucky, but in the heart of humble grit and raw promise. From the very beginning, there was something different about him, a fire in his stride, a sharpness in his mind. He wasn't just fast, he was fearless. By the time he was 2, Affirmed had already begun carving his name into the fabric of racing history. He stormed through the Hollywood Juvenile Championship, dazzled at the hopeful stakes, and sealed his rising legend with a decisive win in the Champagne Stakes. But it wasn't just about the trophies. It was the way he ran. Smart, tactical, relentless. Every finish line he crossed wasn't just a victory, it was a warning. A storm is coming. And lurking behind those wins was a shadow, his eternal rival, Alydar, chasing him race after race, fueling one of the fiercest rivalries the sport would ever witness. This wasn't just the rise of a great horse. This was the birth of a champion built for war. And his war had only just begun. When legends collide, some rivalries are scripted, others are born from blood, speed, and destiny. Affirmed versus Alydar wasn't just a competition. It was a war written across 10 unforgettable races, where neither horse ever backed down. It began when they were just 2-year-olds. Every time Affirmed claimed a victory, Alydar was there, right behind him, eyes burning with vengeance. And when Alydar struck back, it only fueled Affirmed's fire. Back and forth, they battled, trading wins like heavyweight fighters, pushing each other to limits no horse had dared reach before. But what made this rivalry iconic wasn't just the neck-and-neck finishes, it was the drama, the tension, the psychology. 2 colts, nearly equals in talent, locked in a dance of brilliance and defiance, with Affirmed narrowly edging Alydar in 7 out of their 10 duels. Their rivalry wasn't just racing, it was pure theater, played out on the world's biggest stages. Fans weren't watching just to see who would win. They watched to witness the fire, the fury, and the heart of 2 champions born to test each other. In every race they ran, history held its breath. Because when Affirmed met Alydar, legends were made. 2 races, 1 rival, no room for error. By the spring of 1978, the world knew this wasn't just about a Triple Crown. It was about a war between 2 titans, Affirmed and Alydar, colliding in back-to-back masterpieces. At the Kentucky Derby, under the roaring skies of Churchill Downs, Affirmed took the lead early. Alydar, The closer thundered after him in the final stretch. The crowd held its breath, but Affirmed held his ground, crossing the wire just ahead. One down. Then came the Preakness Stakes, shorter, sharper, more brutal. Once again, Alydar charged late with terrifying force. And once again, Affirmed refused to yield, digging into the dirt with the heart of a champion and winning by a neck. These weren't just victories, they were warnings. Affirmed had courage to match his speed, and a will that couldn't be broken. But Alydar wasn't beaten. Not truly. He was getting closer, stronger, smarter. And so the stage was set for Belmont Park, the longest race, the ultimate test. 2 horses, 1 final battle, and the Triple Crown hanging in the balance. 1 mile, 1 dream, 1 final war. June 10th, 1978. The stage was set at Belmont Park, where history is written or denied. The mile-and-a-half test of the champion loomed like a battlefield. For Affirmed, just 1 final step remained. But standing in his way, once again, was the horse who knew him better than anyone, Alydar, faster, stronger, and more determined than ever. The Triple Crown hadn't been won since Secretariat. The weight of glory and expectation hung in the humid New York air. Over 65,000 fans packed the grandstands, not just to witness a race, but to see a war come to its conclusion. Could Affirmed hold him off again? Could an 18-year-old jockey, Steve Cauthen, navigate the toughest race in American racing against the fiercest rival in modern memory? This wasn't just another start. This was a final exam in courage, in strategy, in heart. And Belmont, the graveyard of champions, was ready to break the week. Affirmed wasn't running for speed. He was running for immortality, and what came next would etch his name in fire and legend. Stride for stride, heart for heart, the gates flew open, and the 1978 Belmont Stakes became more than a race. It became a test of wills. For over a mile, Affirmed and Alydar stayed close, each measuring the other, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. But as they hit the final half mile, all strategy vanished, and the war began. Side by side, hoof for hoof, neither giving an inch. The crowd roared as 2 of the greatest thoroughbreds ever seen, locked into a soul-shaking duel down the endless Belmont stretch. Alydar drew even, then ahead, then Affirmed pulled back. Each surge was met with another, like boxers trading punches with no retreat in sight. Steve Cauthen, just a teenager, sat frozen in focus, whispering courage into Affirmed's ears as the chestnut warrior dug in. Alydar's fire was raging. Affirmed's heart was roaring. They were not just racing anymore. They were defining greatness. And in those final seconds, the world stood still, watching 2 titans throw everything they had into the dirt, not just for victory, but for eternity. Glory measured in inches, immortality sealed forever. As the 2 titans thundered toward the finish line, there was no room, no margin, no breath left between them. Affirmed and Alydar, still locked side by side, still refusing to yield. With every stride, history twisted tighter. The grandstands erupted into chaos, but on the track, there was only silence, broken by the thunder of hooves and the beating of 2 unbreakable hearts. And then, in the final desperate push, Affirmed surged, a flick of the head, a last heartbeat of courage, and he crossed the wire just ahead, by a head, by a whisper, by a miracle. With that, Affirmed became the 11th Triple Crown champion, and the first since Secretariat in 1973. But his path had been harder, bloodier, fought tooth and hoof every step of the way. This wasn't just a win. It was the final page of a rivalry that redefined the sport, and a victory earned in battle, not handed by brilliance alone. In that fleeting moment, Affirmed didn't just win the Belmont. He claimed his crown, forged in fire and sealed in legend. The champion who rewrote the record books, Affirmed, didn't just win races. He reshaped what greatness looked like in thoroughbred racing. After conquering the Triple Crown in 1978, his brilliance only grew bolder. He was crowned Horse of the Year not once, but twice, in 1978 and again in 1979, a rare feat reserved for the truly elite. But honors weren't just handed to Affirmed. He earned them with relentless consistency, iron will, and undeniable class. Across 29 career starts, Affirmed won 22 times and was never once out of the top 3, a staggering mark of excellence that few have ever touched. And then came the numbers. In an era before million-dollar purses were common, Affirmed shattered ceilings by becoming the first thoroughbred in history to surpass $2 million in career earnings, a true trailblazer. His legacy was immortalized with his induction into the National Museum of Racing Hall of Fame, where only the rarest legends reside. Affirmed wasn't just a champion of his generation. He was a standard-bearer for all time, a symbol of how heart, grit, and fire can turn a racehorse into a legend that never fades. The relentless heart of a champion. Great horses win, but legends endure again and again. Affirmed wasn't just brilliant, he was relentlessly reliable, the kind of horse who showed up every time, no matter the track, no matter the stakes. In his 29 career starts, Affirmed won 22 races, placed 5 times, and showed twice, meaning he was never out of the money. Not once. That level of consistency under pressure, across different distances and surfaces, against the fiercest rivals, was unheard of. He didn't just rise for the big days, he rose for every day. He battled injuries, he faced legends, and still he came charging again and again, with grit in his hooves and ice in his veins. Whether he was being chased down or doing the chasing, Affirmed knew one gear: forward. Fans didn't just admire him, they trusted him. Because when the gates flew open and the thunder began, Affirmed always answered. He was more than a champion. He was a guarantee of greatness. A teenager, a titan, and one unbreakable bond. At just 18 years old, Steve Cauthen wasn't supposed to make history. He was barely out of high school, riding against seasoned veterans on the sport's biggest stages. But with a calm mind and fearless hands, he guided Affirmed through one of the greatest campaigns racing has ever seen, and in doing so, became the youngest jockey in history to win the Triple Crown. Cauthen wasn't just along for the ride, he was the heartbeat in the saddle, reading every breath, every stride, every flick of Affirmed's ear. Together they formed a bond built on instinct, trust, and perfect timing. When the pressure mounted, when rivals surged, Cauthen never panicked. He listened to the rhythm beneath him and let Affirmed fly. It wasn't experience that made Steve Cauthen great, it was connection, that rare magic between horse and rider. And in 1978, that bond didn't just win races, it made history. 2 teenagers, in body or in soul, one human, one horse, took on the world and left it in awe. The standard that time couldn't touch when Affirmed crossed the finish line at Belmont in 1978, he didn't just win the Triple Crown, he closed the gates behind him. For the next 37 years, no horse could replicate what he had done. One by one, challengers came and fell. Some dazzled in the Derby, others flared in the Preakness, but none could conquer all three. Affirmed stood alone. His Belmont victory became more than a sports moment. It became a mythic benchmark, a tale of heart and grit passed from generation to generation. Trainers invoked his name. Jockeys studied his races. Fans clung to memories of that fiery chestnut who just refused to break. Affirmed didn't just leave hoofprints on the track, he carved his legacy into the soul of American racing. He was a champion who never ducked a fight, never failed to deliver, and never gave less than everything. And until 2015, when American Pharoah finally broke the drought, Affirmed was the crown bearer of an entire era, a reminder of what true greatness looks like when talent, will, and courage collide. He wasn't just the last, he was the gold standard.